Hello and welcome to the Reflection Experience web series. And today we have a special podcast for you. And on today's episode, I have with me a very special guest, Aparna, who has literally been with me since my first album. And together, we both have experienced so much creatively. And I am truly honored that you came and joined me on this episode today. So, welcome,
Oh,
Aparna.
thank you so much, Rahul. The pleasure is all mine. And I can't wait to see what we talk about today.
It's going to be really interesting though, because I feel that
It
most of
is.
our conversations are very like deep and creatively enlightening, if you get what I mean.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And honestly, I've always said this a lot, but I feel like creatively we've both grown, even though we use different mediums of art, we've both grown in kind of the same direction, and that like our visions kind of have always, I don't want to say overlap because they're not always exactly the same, but they have the same core. You know what I mean? The same core
Agreed.
principles. So it's always interesting to have like almost all of our conversations are absolutely interesting when it comes to art.
They definitely are. And talking about your art, you are an a brilliant writer. Okay, brilliance does not even properly encompass how well you can write.
Yes.
So it's Weathered Storms and Hidden Stars. That's your Instagram page. And you've been writing so well. And might I say, you have been just accomplishing so much through that page, which I'm so proud of you because you deserve all of it.
You're too kind, Rahul, as always. But thank you so much. Thank you. And honestly, I have to say this, I would not have created that page if I hadn't had the confidence that I had developed after hearing feedback from like all of my amazing friends, including you.
Yeah.
You've been such a great inspiration and such a great role model, to be honest, when it comes to being confident about your art. Because I had such fears about being judged about what I write, or, just people taking everything superficially, or taking it the wrong way, because I have this inherent need to be liked by everybody, and
Yeah.
so to overcome that fear of judgment, of like people possibly not liking what I write, or people even people criticizing my art, which constructive criticism is completely fine, but sometimes there are people who criticize your art just for the sake of criticizing it,
Agreed.
and to overcome that and build up a confidence and self-worth which is not dependent on extrinsic values, and to be able to do something just because I like doing it, that's been an absolutely amazing experience.
I'm
And
sure it has been. Sorry, you were saying.
no problem. And actually, that kind of actually reflected in my choice for my Instagram handle as well. I don't think I've talked about it before anywhere, but the idea of the username is being Weathered Storms and Hidden Stars. Even though it was extremely long, I had my heart set on it because at that point, when I was starting to publish poetry online, and I was like, okay, let's do this. I wanted the handle to represent me and my stories, sort of. So the idea of Weathered Storms and Hidden Stars is that it encompasses my personality in that way, where I am the result of all of the storms that I have weathered, and discovering, or like using my art to discover what other facets of my personality I am yet to discover. You know what I mean? So that's where the Hidden Stars comes
Completely.
into it.
In that way, I feel we both are very similar because we use art as therapy at one
Mm-hmm.
point. We, like, even this album for me at one point, Reflection was a song which was just how like what you said. It's been what I've been through, all the storms that I've weathered, and now how I am coming to terms with my growth and how I am taking into that positivity. Because if you see, like, as you've mentioned, what happens is that negativity and that destructive criticism that people keep throwing on you, right, just to bring you down, that sometimes overlaps and comes onto you in such a negative way that you get frightened the next time when you're trying to release something new, be it a song or be
Absolutely.
it a poem. Because I sometimes I'm like, what if this song is not well received by people? Then people won't listen to it, people will not like it, and then after which then I will feel even worse, saying that am I not a good enough musician, that I'm not putting up good music? Because at one point you can make music for yourself, but then if you're releasing it into the world and you're making people hear it, and if they don't like it and they are criticizing it in a very bad way, it affects you as an artist, and your artistry suffers through that.
It does. That's actually a really good point that you bring up. The fact that your artistry does suffer through that, especially when you're using your art as a conduit for what your thoughts are or whatever you're feeling at the moment, it absolutely will leach into that. Even if you don't mean to, even if you actively try to counter it, while, for example, when I'm writing a poem and I am actively trying to not let that self doubt creep into my words, it will show. And it may not be extremely obvious, but it gives that sort of like undertone to the poem or to the piece of writing, whatever I'm writing. And when the reader reads it, they will get that as well. And they won't know why they're getting that feeling, but they will. And it will show that this is not something that an absolutely confident person wrote.
You've been there like since the first album. Okay.
Yes.
And talking about the first album, since I brought it up, we have to talk about the book. So, what people might not know is you wrote the book for my first album, and
Yes.
that was, I think, a life changing experience for both of us when I became more steadfast in music. And I'm very sure that also paved a bit way for your writing, also. So, do you want to maybe talk about that?
It absolutely did. And yes, of course, it was like I completely agree with you that it was such a huge turning point because I have been writing for a really long time, and I have never really thought, or I have thought about putting it out there for people to read. In like, I've put out stories before, but very sporadically, never in a way that was like, okay, this is something that I can actually do consistently. Uh, Especially because never really took, I don't want to say I never took writing seriously. I did. It's very important to me. It always has, but I never had it as like I always used to just write whenever I felt like it. And there was never any honing of skills that was going on, or never any technical aspects to it, which actually is really important when you are trying to master an art. So when it came to writing, or when you approached me for writing the book for the album, and to actually sit down with someone else who is so creatively inspired, who has like a million ideas racing around, and also someone with such a clear cut vision. Okay, so that's the absolute difference between you and me at that point, was that I never really had a creative vision. And then I see you with such a clear cut vision of exactly what you want, and knowing that this
I,
is what you need to get. Absolutely inspiring.
so I will stop you right there. You do have a brilliant vision, because I remember when I first explained to you about Consort's voice in my head, I told you that I want, I told you how the story went, and then you were like, you came and told me, you were like, you know, just give me a day. And then the next day you came with a small draft of what you had written for, I think, the first intro song, and how
Yeah.
you had introduced two characters and you had fused it with the song and the lyrics. And after that, I think together, both of us, we kind of built on the story, and we placed songs in such a way in that album that it made melodic sense. It was like I'm taking you through a relationship with me in that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And it was the journey of Alex, which was obviously a fictional character.
Yeah.
And what happened is that story was something which was conceptualized by you. And I'm ever so grateful for you, because when I started out, I just had 14 completely like scrambled songs, but then you had a clear cut vision saying that I think this is how we should go with it and this is how we should do it. And then somehow both of us managed to get it on the same play. So that's the only place where I'm going to disagree with you, because you did have a clear-cut vision.
Yeah, but the thing is that yes, I had a clear cut vision for that project, but
Yeah.
I mean in like a general sense where you had a clear cut vision that you wanted to put out an album, and you knew that this is the kind of album that you wanted it to be. Sure, conceptualizing came afterwards with our conversations and everything, but you had more of a specific direction where you were like you did not just write songs and leave them lying around at that point, right? Like you were writing songs that you knew you wanted to put out as an album, whereas
Yeah.
I was more or less at that point still writing poetry very sporadically and with no intention of doing anything with them, right? So
I
that's what I mean by having a clear cut
Yeah.
vision. But yeah, I completely do. With really, that's kind of just how my eye works, is that I was even discussing this with a fellow poet the other day. I see myself as a poet, yes, but I would identify myself as a storyteller first and foremost, which is why
Perfect.
as soon as I heard your album slash I was reading through the lyrics and I heard the songs and I began to see the pattern there, and I
Yep.
saw the story, which is when I asked you for a day and I was like, yeah, this can really be something. And that's when we started working on the companion book to the album, and honestly,
Yeah.
such a great experience because I was bringing ideas to the table and bouncing them off of you, and so were you. So it was not just like
Yep.
a one, it was not just me working on it or you working on it. Honestly, that album and book is like a perfect melting pot of both our
It
ideas
is.
with the best of both of our skills.
And that's the entire concept about artists supporting artists. We bounced off each other's ideas and we came to such certainty when it came to Consort's voice in my head that even now, when I read that story and I listen to each song, it is perfect.
Honestly, it was amazing finding that same wavelength, with the
It's
same
very
frequency,
difficult.
same
Yeah.
wavelength. It's extremely difficult and it's rare, but I am so glad that we found it.
I mean, I'm touching all the places where I can find wood right now. But yeah, so another thing is, now obviously that was my first album, and if that wouldn't have happened, and if we both didn't like really like work so hard for it and push it out, I wouldn't be where I am today, releasing my third album and making this web series right now. So I really, this is my first full length album since Consort's Voice in my head. And
It is.
I, at one point, I am also scared because, I mean, you understand, like when you worked so hard on something and you've created a pattern,
Mhm.
and then you're about to release it. And even right now, the three singles which I've released off,
Yeah,
all of them are so different. None of
they
you do not get a story from it. But
they are.
when you listen to the album from the first song till the last song, you will hear a perfect story, a progression. It
Mhm.
starts out with piano in the first half. Then by the time you come to the interlude, there's a techno influence where you're shifting from piano to techno, and then you go to the dance floor and you're enjoying your life. And then finally, it draws back and circles back to the piano. And all of these story and all of this storytelling, that's a form of art which I've really learned from you also at one point, because you know like how even tiny details like references, I have referenced other songs through lyrics of another song, and you would know this because even you
Yeah,
do that with your poetry sometimes.
I absolutely do, and I do get that. References are like it's like a subtle little nod to
Yeah.
the past version of you, because I genuinely do believe that as well, with that every piece of art or every work of art that you put out, you change yourself a little bit. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because like with every piece of art that I write, I gain a new perspective, especially when I discuss it with other artists, and I gain a new perspective which adds to who I am, right? So
Agreed.
adding little references like that, it's like it's a little subtle nod to like who you were and what you're growing into. It's a little
Totally.
thing, but it's a very little thing, but it means so much, to the people who catch it, and most of all for yourself. I've always been a big fan of references because of that. It's like it's there not for anyone else, but I know that it's there,
Agreed.
and that makes me happy about it, you know?
And I completely agree because when you know that you've put these small Easter eggs in your album or in your writing,
Hmm.
you feel content and you feel happy and satisfied, right? That's what
Exactly.
the joy is. And the ironic part is, till now, all the Easter eggs which I've tried hiding in my album, you
Uh-huh.
have always been able to like figure it out where, what is, and how it's related to, which is something which I still cannot fathom how you do it because I try hiding it so well. You're like Sherlock when it comes to like detection of subtle art. So,
Well,
how do you have such a keen?
I think that has a lot to do with, I was just going to answer that question. I'm so sorry. I
No problem.
think it has one that has a lot to do with the fact that we've been friends for such a long time, and we've been so encouraging of each other's arts. Like I followed your songs since Consort's Voice in my head. So I've picked up on a lot of the patterns there and how you've grown as an artist, which by the way is such tremendous growth. I'm digressing here, but
Thank you.
the amount of growth that has happened, both musically and personality wise, from Consort's Voice in my head to this album, is incredible. Like, I'm trying to find the words to, do it justice, but I can't, quite honestly, because it's that incredible. And the most mysterious and magnificent part of this, like, growth is that you've managed to still hang on to your core principles. So you're different, but you're still the same, which is a very, very hard thing to do, is to hold on to your core personality while still adapting to all the changes that are happening.
That's really sweet of you to say. Like I'm literally in tears right now just listening to that. But I, I, I mean, I've seen how we both have been growing together
Mhm.
when it comes to writing, when it comes to art. We use it as in such a way that it helps us and it makes us better people. And I've seen both of us when we use art, we use it as a form to channel kindness into the community.
Mhm.
Because I'm very sure you've also seen it. I've also been through it. You've also been through it. There's so much of negativity, right, that surrounds us.
Yeah.
And mainly art is something which I have no idea, but it acts as a vortex to draw in criticism and negativity. Okay.
It does.
And to stay positive and to release music which is kind. I've never seen either you or me till now write songs about ridiculing people or very bad standards of beauty or anything till now. It's always been body positivity or it's always been about mental health or something which is good and has a tone which touches people's heart.
Because that's what in the end art is about, right? It's about inclusivity, and it is about making people feel good about themselves. I really do think that in the end that's what art truly is that it is something that people look to when they need to feel better.
So many people use art as a form of bettering themselves or to calm themselves. Like I remember, like if I have a bad day, I
Uh-huh.
literally, if I've had the worst day and I don't feel like doing anything, I make sure that I just switch on my streaming service and play a Lady Gaga song on blast, and I will be dancing my heart out, and that just makes me feel so happy.
That's I get it. I absolutely get it. That's what I'm saying. It's in fact it's a form of escapism too. Now that after listening to you just say that, it is a form of escapism. For me, I'm like another version of that, wherein writing is my catharsis. So if I've had an extremely bad day, I'm going to come home, I'm going to drop everything, and I'm going to write about it. I may not write about the exact same situation. Once again, that's something that I feel a lot of poets are mistaken for, is that they write about things that have happened to them or that they have experienced. But honestly, it's just that whatever we write about has a core emotion at the center of it. And you don't necessarily have to have experienced what you're writing about, as long as you've experienced the core emotion behind it. So really, a lot of it is just to do with empathy at that point. But I'm digressing once again. But yeah, so that's the thing. For me, writing is a catharsis. So if I've had a really bad day, I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna write about how I'm feeling, and I'm gonna find a story in it, and I'm gonna make that into a poem or a short story or whatever it is that I feel like writing that day.
Now, Aparna, as you know, we've been having some very deep conversation about artistry, and I want to lighten up the mood a bit. In each episode, I have decided to have a fun segment where we play a small game. And since this is a podcast, I thought the best game to play would be word dissociation.
It sounds interesting. So how do we
Okay.
play it?
So, what happens in word dissociation is I will say a word and you have to say something completely unrelated to it. Now, if I say pant, you have to be like laptop. But if
Right.
you say shirt, then it's associating the word because a pant and a shirt are associated. So practically, we have to just keep going, dissociating words. And I am really scared to be going up against you because when it comes to words, you know, you're like a walking thesaurus. So I am really, really worried. But let's try
But
up.
but I will say that I am at an extreme disadvantage, because having been used to writing poetry, you get used to associating words with each other. So
Yeah.
to come up with words, like have that self-restraint to not say the first word that immediately jumps to mind, is gonna be a lot.
And the best part is you have to say it immediately. As soon as I finish a word, you have to say it. If you take a gap in between, you lose. And then we'll start with another round. We'll try playing. Let's see how the rounds go. And then accordingly, we'll decide how many rounds we play. Sounds good?
And
Okay, perfect. So we're going to start. I will start with the word. And then you have to tell something completely dissociated to it. Okay? And now, since we are kind of like locked up at home, I thought that this would be a perfect word to start with. Are you ready?
let's go.
Here goes nothing. Quarantine.
River,
Laptop.
fan.
Piano.
Okay, that's it. I was gonna say guitar. I was gonna say guitar, which would have been completely associated to it.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Are you ready for round two? The word I will start with is COVID-19.
Perfume,
Curtains.
book,
Paintings.
scale,
Guitar.
air conditioner,
Pencil.
laundry basket.
You lost.
Wait, how does, what
You
did you
cannot
say?
say. No. Laundry basket is fine, but then you took too much of time. Remember, I
Oh
told you.
my god, I said, okay.
Yes. Let's start with round three.
All
Floor
right.
mat.
Shoes,
Coil.
a pillow,
Charger.
street lamp,
Laptop.
apartment,
Pen.
crosswalk.
Cake.
I took way too much time.
So thank you again for joining me today, Aparna. I'd like to give a huge shout out to your Instagram page, Weathered Storms and Hidden Stars. Whoever's
too
listening to
kind.
this podcast, please do go and check it out for quality content. And I actually mean it. If you really want good writing, you have to go and head out to that page right now. The link is in the description of this YouTube video. So please do go check it out. And thank you so much for being with me today on this episode, Aparna.
Thank you for having
And
me.
we will catch you in the next episode, which is Elemental. So see you then. Bye bye.
Bye.